We turn on each other like animals!
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we're playing Jund Superfriends in the Timeless format. So we've gotten a lot of awesome planeswalkers on Arena lately, and most notably Wrenn and Six. Super powerful 2-mana planeswalker and can notably perform a strip mine loop by itself with its +1, and it can play a little defense. Just a very strong planeswalker. We also got Grist, which is a very unique sort of creature-y planeswalker weird card, but it can fill up your graveyard, create creatures, and also blow stuff up if needed, and can ultimate to have like a little bit of a closing effect. So very cool, powerful card. And then pair that with Minsc, which is like a really strong pedigreed closer, you know, just can end games in a hurry. So everything else is trying to enable the sort of planeswalker heavy game plan. So we have mana dorks to try and ramp them out, hand disruption to battle the combo decks, and we also have, you know, a little bit extra removal and Bowmasters to punish card draw and give blockers, you know. So all in all, we're just trying to Jund them out. Alright, anytime you have a Deathrite Shaman hand, you're pretty happy. Not to mention we have the fetch land, so we have at least one turn of fuel for Deathrite. Can possibly slam a turn 2 Grist. Let's see what the opponent does to try and stop us. Friendly opponent on the other side. Let's see if Deathrite survives. Alright, so the opponent's going to just fetch land and pass back to us. So it's important we play our fetch land here if we want to play Grist, you know, because Deathrite currently doesn't have any lands in the graveyard to feed off of. So we're going to crack the fetch and try to have more fetchable sources in this deck because of Wrenn and Six. You know, you'd be often, ideally rebuying strip mines, but sometimes you're rebuying fetch lands, you know. So with Deathrites and Wrenn and Six, you want to have a lot of fetchable targets and a lot of lands to go in your graveyard, you know. So gonna slam Grist. Grist is a very unique card because it's a creature in every zone except the battlefield. So like if opponent had a Spell Pierce, for example, it wouldn't be able to counter Grist. So not to mention, if you plus Grist and you flip another Grist, it does the, you know, repeating trigger thing. Uh-oh, Ancient Tomb. So already like, oh, and it's a show and tell. I'm like, oh, great. Like I'm like, okay, well, do I just lose right here? I mean, this is the nature of Timeless right now. So slamming a Bowmasters, and it turns out it's Atraxis. So very, very glad it's not Omniscience. However, the opponent has found an Omniscience and is stocked up their hand in more way than one. So we need to get them dead in a hurry. Now, thankfully, we have two answers. We have Molten Collapse and we have Grist minus. So this is me thinking about which one is best to use. The thing is, we need to get them dead in a hurry because if they have like another show and tell, then we might just lose. So I think it's way better to use Grist's ability to kill Atraxa, because then we could still play Minsc because the opponent has lands in their graveyard, you know. So that's the line. Gonna use Deathrite on the opponent's lands, which also does double duty of like possibly messing up their dig through times, you know. So gonna slam Minsc, and Minsc is the main closer in this deck. It just ends games in a hurry, which this deck could honestly maybe use a little bit more of. You know, the 1/1 tokens that Grist makes and like the Bowmasters and stuff, like they can chip in, but they can't close games in a hurry like Minsc has. So this deck might need a little bit more punch. It does have Kroxa also, you know, so happy to see the opponent using Ancient Tomb because it's putting them in reach. Alright, stock up. Very glad it's not a show and tell. So let's see what the opponent has. So they have one blue-white mana open. We know that we know for a fact that they have swords because we've seen one already. So I'm declining the hamster, and I'm really worried about swords right now because we currently have lethal, and I'm really trying to figure out how to navigate this. So decide just to activate Grist first, see if we can prompt anything from the opponent, and holding off on the strip mine because I don't want the opponent to know about that. So I decide the best course of action is to fling our hamster at the opponent just to lock in some guaranteed damage, and if we draw like a Thoughtseize, that could be game ending right there. So unfortunately it's just Fury and a bunch of lands which do nothing, but at least now we've constrained the opponent's options. So we can send them with 2 creatures, and if they have the swords, they're automatically dead at this point. And it turns out they did have the swords, but we can just activate Deathrite to kill them. So the opponent, I don't think, played quite defensively enough. They needed to take down our hamster before we did anything with it, like with the Minsc fling or something like that. But anyway, we beat show and tell, move on to the next game. So another mana dork hand feels pretty good. In these situations, though, I tend to like to lead with discard spell, so I'm going to Inquisition right here, especially because we're not ramping into anything right now. Be different if we had Minsc in hand. And another show and tell deck. So they have Atraxa, going to just take the show and tell Now we know about face-up mana drain, and we have to navigate the Veil also. So, but having Bowmasters is really nice. So I'm trying to think about what to do. Like, so often, because Bowmasters is flash, you want to hold it up, but with mana drain, and like, let's say they draw a blue source and slam it, then all of a sudden, Bowmasters is looking a lot less lucrative. So I'm actually going to just main phase the Bowmasters now. It gets it under any card draw and helps it dodge the counter, you know. They could just play the mana drain, you know. Sorry, play the Ancient Tomb and not have up mana drain is what I meant to say. Alright, so the opponent's going to stock up, and as the opponent decides what to get, please Wintermoon Mace the like button if you like junding people out. Alright, so they get their cards. Molten Collapse is not great. It can... The reason I like it is because it can pop like a Mox Opal or a Chrome Mox, you know, so like it does work in the non-creature matchups, and it can do double duty sometimes, so I like the flexibility of Molten Collapse. Gonna main phase another Bowmasters here because it grows the Orc army for attack, and once again just keeps, you know, it away from like the counter spells and Veil of Summers and stuff like that. So, alright, the opponent firing off a Brainstorm into 2 copies of Bowmasters, like very happy about that. However, the opponent's not currently dead right now. Like if they find, you know, land show and tell, like this still is enough despite being a lot of triggers. So place all the Bowmaster triggers on there and just bracing for impact at this point. Just if we can untap, we probably got, and turns out we got him again. So happily beating up the show and tell decks. So currently I'm running 3 Thoughtseize, 3 Inquisition, which really is like our main defense against combo. I guess Strip Mines also, you know, but you can tweak the discard numbers to suit your preference. And we're getting Inquisition right here. So I kept this hand, honestly. It's a very polarizing hand. Like, if Wrenn and Six is good, then this hand is really good. But if Wrenn and Six sucks in this matchup, then we've gone all in on Wrenn and Six, you know. So I honestly don't know if I should have kept this hand. I'm leaning towards thinking that it was a bad keep, you know. So, but things are going pretty poor. The opponent is able to take our Thoughtseize away from us, and then they pull their own Strip Mine. So we can't crack the fetch on end step because then the opponent's going to deny us our second mana. So at least we get 1 shot of 2 mana right here that's safe from Strip Mine, you know. So, and limited fetchable colored targets, you know, so I'm a little worried about that, but thankfully we have Wrenn and Six to do some work. So I'm going to put Wrenn and Six on the stack and rebuy a fetch land. Yeah, and we have a face-up Strip Mine, but the thing is the opponent like has the like initiative essentially. Like they have the Deathrite, they already going to blow up one of our lands. So I guess I could have popped one of their lands with the Strip Mine, but then we're really not doing anything. I figured it was really worth it to get a Wrenn and Six in play and just cause them some problems. Alright, so the opponent is going to dash out a Ragavan and then crash in. So they're ignoring Wrenn and Six at the moment, but it also keeps Ragavan safe from Wrenn and Six because it's going to bounce back. So they can't play our Grist. We got to see if they can use their mana otherwise, though. Another Thoughtseize is annoying because Bowmasters would have been really good against what the opponent was doing, and then another Goyf. So we're clearly playing against like a very lean version of Jund. Like obviously they have Lurrus Companion, though, so they have like Nether Goyfs, Deathrite Shamans, Ragavans, like sort of like Zoomer Jund, you know. Maybe even Gen Alpha Jund, you know, depending on how modern it looks. So we're a lot more clunkier and way more susceptible to getting locked out through Strip Mine. You know, they have a lot more lean. Like they just need 1 mana a lot of times to get all their threats in play. So really trying to figure out what to do here and decide for the very card inefficient play of double Wrenn and Six minus to kill Deathrite Shaman. And this is... You could see how badly things are going. Spending 2 Wrenn and Six to kill a Deathrite, especially when Nether Goyf is going to finish the second one. But so that goes back to the mulligan decision. I kept a handful of Wrenn and Sixes. Well, like, what am I supposed to do with them besides use them? You know. So, but it's just going extremely poorly for us right now. And if, like, let's say if one of the Wrenn and Sixes was a Grist, for example, we'd be feeling a lot better about this situation. But things are rapidly deteriorating for us. And as the opponent draws their Mishra's Bauble card, I'll link another Strip Mine deck that I've played, you know, you could check out. So we're not dead yet. We're going to keep fighting the good fight. So I'm going to play Wrenn and Six here and plus it. So the reason I'm playing in this manner is I know the Boggart Trawler is going to be good against another Goyf, but we don't have a black source currently. Otherwise I would have slammed it last turn. So I needed Wrenn and Six to get me a black source, and I figured while I'm at it, might as well strip mine the red source to lock them off Ragavan. So that was the rationale. However, now it's getting a little sketchy. So, okay, so there's the Grist, which is going to be pretty nice. So what I'm going to do here is just slam Boggart Trawler to basically like nerf their Nether Goyf, at least for the time being. So that's going to exhaust their graveyard. Now, unfortunately, we have fetch lands that they can use their Deathrite Shaman to cast stuff, you know. So they're going to take away our strip mine in the graveyard. Oh, and there's an amped Raptor. Nightmare Snare, because that's going to just generate a ton of value. And they have another Nether Goyf, which thankfully is being held off by our Boggart Trawler right now. Now this hand looks awesome. Like, alright, I can deal with the opponent's doing. But we only have one black source. We have triple black spells, but only one black source. Thanks to all the strip mining. So I'm like, oh my goodness, like what, you know. So then I'm like, whoa, what do I do? And everything we kill is going to boost the Nether Goyfs. So that's why I'm hesitating right here, because like we could strip mine them and kill their Deathrite, but all of a sudden their Nether Goyfs are 2 power each, you know. So I figure Deathrite has the biggest chance of constraining them, and I'm just going to pass. Like, once again, I didn't want to boost the Nether Goyfs, but maybe I should have just strip mined their land just to really narrow their options, because Nightmare Scenario unfolding, we left the mana in play. Here comes Wrenn and Six to just get rid of our blocker. So, and not strip mining in response because it's going to grow the Nether Goyfs, you know. So just went pretty poorly, and it all goes back to that keep, which is pretty sketchy. And, you know, if I had strip mined last turn, it might have actually been able to turn things around with, like, putting out Grist and, like, might have been able to put up a fight. But at this point, there's too many attackers, so we're going to pack it in. On to the next game. This hand's pretty awesome. Thoughtseize, Bowmasters, Wrenn and Six. We'll be able to sculpt a pretty good plan right here. And I'm not leading with Swamp because then that takes away turn 2 Wrenn and Six, you know. So going to fetch a shock land to keep our options open, you know, because sure, you know, basically if you go turn 1 Swamp, Thoughtseize, you're locked into Bowmasters turn 2. And I wanted to keep the options open. So double Bowmasters, Deathrite, and Demonic Tutor. It looks like a mid-range deck. It doesn't look like combo, so I'm not as scared of the Demonic Tutor. I'm going to take the Deathrite Shaman because that's good against Wrenn and Six and a lot of what we're doing. Alright, now, here's the question. What do you do now? It seems like the best thing to do is play Wrenn and Six, because the opponent has it under no pressure right now. And that'll at least like make the opponent have to do something about it. So we have Wrenn and Six in play, and then, you know, I really like getting 2 mana in play before like strip mining, because then we still have a lot of cards we can play. And so now we can force the opponent's hand. So we can play strip mine and just strip mine one of their lands to force them to do something. Now obviously the opponent's going to play a Bowmasters. You know, they don't want to waste that mana, so they're going to Bowmasters. But that's going to allow us to like very cleanly take care of it with either Wrenn and Six or Bowmasters. And so now I'm trying to decide what to do. Do I minus Wrenn and Six to kill the Bowmasters, or do I Bowmasters it down? Decide to use Wrenn and Six because it can still handle the other one. Let's say the opponent attempts to kill Wrenn and Six next turn by flashing in Bowmasters to deal damage to Wrenn and Six and then grow the Orc army. Then we can blow them out with our own Bowmasters, you know. So it sets us up pretty nicely. Alright, so the opponent decides to ignore Wrenn and Six and go straight at us. And we have taken a ton of damage off our Thoughtseize and Shocklands and stuff. I'm not playing the Bowmasters because then they're going to be able to pop our Bowmasters. So going to recur the strip mine and basically recreate the same scenario last turn. Like pop their land and force them to do something about it, which is then going to expose their Bowmasters to our numerous ways to deal with it. So here comes their Bowmasters, and this is the beauty of Wrenn and Six plus strip mine right here. So if you love these like attrition games, definitely make a Wrenn and Six strip mine deck. You'll have a ton of fun. And there's a lot of different ways to build it. You don't even have to build Super Friends. You can build it like a Lurrus companion, like the other player we saw, or you can build like Big John with like Liliana of the Veil and all sorts of fun stuff. Tarmogoyf. The opponent is not liking how it's going, and they're just going to move on. So next game, no black sources, so we're going to ship that one back. Going to put back Kroxa in this case, because let's say the opponent has hand disruption. We want to have 2 copies of Wrenn and Six in case they take one. So, and Kroxa is more of like a late game card, something we prefer to mill over with like a Grist. You know, don't exactly love to hard cast it unless it's late game, you know. So, gonna lead with an Inquisition, see what we're dealing with. Alright, so it's obviously a combo deck. We see Paradoxical Outcome and Beseech, Mishra's Bauble, Sacrifice, Dark Ritual. So, it seems like the clear thing to take. So, I was deciding between Mishra's Bauble and Dark Ritual, because Bauble fuels both Beseech and Paradoxical Outcome, but Dark Ritual makes it so they can't really do anything for quite a long time. Now, it can get ugly. All they need to do is rip a Grief, then all of a sudden we're in trouble with like Sacrifice and shenanigans like that, but it seems like taking Dark Ritual is the play there. Alright, so opponent's going to play a tap land, Mishra's Bauble, and pass to us. Alright, Delighted Halfling. So that changes everything. I was about to slam Wrenn and Six, but Wrenn and Six doesn't really do anything right now. Like, it puts them under no pressure. However, if we play Halfling right now, that guarantees a turn 3 Minsc, which can end the game in the hurry. And like, that's Minsc whole job, is as like a super strong closer. And so despite it being mana efficient, the play right here is actually Delighted Halfling. So, not to mention the can't be countered ability Halfling grants. You know, it is unlikely the opponent's running like mana drain over there, but oh, maybe they have like spell pierce, you know. So alright, so they missed a mana source, which is good for us. And you know, maybe they're holding up a counter, maybe they just missed a land, you know, they're trying to assemble some sort of combo over there. So we're gonna crack the fetch. And you do need to be somewhat conservative with their life total. Like, it's likely they're going for a Tendrils win, so we can't, like, it's not like against Show and Tell where you can just blow up your whole life total and not really care. So we do have to be a little bit mindful. So we're gonna make our hamster and start shelling out the damage. Alright, so we got a 4/4 hamster crashing in and trying to end the game in a hurry. And like I mentioned before, it could be that this deck needs like 1 or 2 more closers. Like, right now has 2 Kroxas and 4 Minsc, but there are certain games, you know, where you're just sort of twiddling your thumbs at some 1/1s and like, you know, because now the opponent has a blocker and they've actually bought themselves a considerable amount of time despite our creature having trample. So they're just playing out sort of a desperation Thoughtseize Oracle, I think, just to soak up damage and maybe set up the top card of their deck, because you notice they bottomed the 2 cards they looked at. So trying to figure out what to do, because you always have the card draw option when you have a hamster in play. So, but I'm trying to just end the game ASAP right here. So checking to make sure I understand exactly what's in the graveyard. Going to just attack in. Could have got fancy if the opponent blocked the 1/2 and used double Wrenn and Six to kill Thoughtseize, but I'm not, based on the cards I've seen, I'm not feeling threatened by Thoughtseize Oracle. So going to plus Wrenn and Six, get a land. And the thing is, the opponent has to do something, or else we just toss the hamster at their face and they lose. You know, so this is the do or die turn for them, and we got to see whether they're able to muster up their combo. All right, so there's land number 4. Sorry, no, land number 3. It was, now with Mox Opal is getting mixed up with the bauble. So the opponent's going to crack their fetch, and yeah, they didn't have anything. So on to the next game. So this hand is tricky. So we only have a black source, but if Deathrite survives, Strip Mine can fuel, you know, Deathrite to help us cast some stuff. So, all right, it looks like we're playing against mono blue control. Very interesting build. So it could be that we're also, it could be like maybe like a splash of prison, like maybe like has Harbinger of the Seas, you know. So I decided to take Archmage's Charm because that can gain control of permanents with mana value 1 or less, which they could take a Deathrite and cause some problems for us. Thoughtseize is incredible. So I'm trying to think. So we do want to get up to 3 mana eventually for Grist. So I decide to play Deathrite and not crack the Strip Mine. The opponent doesn't. They need more mana to like have some really threatening stuff, and so I'm okay with them firing off their current 2 mana spell Now, if they drew a mana drain, then that's going to suck, but I'm going to just let it happen so that we have enough mana to actually deploy a threat and then cause them some problems. So I'm going to now pop their land with Strip Mine just to clear the way for any counter spells. Alright, so they're just going to play their card selection. So there's Moment of Truth. Alright, opponent's sifting through stuff. And I need to revisit some blue decks. I've been bouncing around mostly in artifact strategies and other random stuff, so I need to revisit the blue deck, see if there's anything I can do. So I'm considering taking Slundi Vision here because that's going to like take away a mana source. Not to mention, we know we're going to get to strip mine them again with Wrenn and Six, so I want to, like, we could possibly just win the game that way. So, not to mention, we need to recycle our strip mine to keep putting lands in the graveyard to keep the Deathrite fueled, you know. So, going to Wrenn and Six and return the strip mine, and that honestly, sometimes this just prompts a concession. You know, when the opponent's short on mana and we demonstrated a Wrenn and strip mine loop, you know, and it turns out to be enough right there. So that's the power of the 2-mana planeswalker right there. So little bit of a slow hand, don't have any hand disruption. Try and decide what to lead with. Once again, if we lead with tap Boggart Trawler, then we can guarantee not turn to Wrenn and Six, you know. So trying to be optimistic here with the fetch land. Don't love seeing the MDFC on the other side, so the opponent's going to grief us. Don't really care much about the grief, but the fact that they're bolting in that land is a bad sign, because they could be scamming us right here, or they could be sacrificing it, which is as bad or worse. So the opponent has 4 black mana to play with on turn 1. Let's see how they use it, and it turns out it's Balustrade Spy. So Spy Belcher is a very strong deck, and this is, you know, we have 6 turn 1 hand disruption spells. We just didn't have one this game, and you know, sometimes you get got in best of 1, you know. So the opponent has a solo Narcomoeba, which is going to bring back prized amalgams. The creeping chills are going to go off, and they're going to bring back the silver smoke ghouls, you know. So the opponent has a ton of things going off right here. Now, sometimes you can survive Spy Belcher going off if you have a little bit of a board presence. Like, let's say we had like a turn 1 drop, and Bowmasters can like block 2 things and take down 1 thing, you know. So that's sort of why I was hanging on here, but I think I underestimated how many creatures they had in play. So at first I'm like, oh, maybe the Bowmasters can hold them off, but it's like, no, even if we kill 1 thing, block 2 things, we're still super dead. So on to the next game. Halfling into turn 2 Grist looks pretty good. However, like I said, I tend to like to lead with Thoughtseize in these kind of situations. So, alright, so there's a lot of new artifact decks floating around. This seems to be like a Corey Steelcutter. You know, there's probably Mox Amber. Well, actually, not necessarily. They aren't demonstrating a lot of artifacts. This might be like a lean red-black tempo deck. You know, using Tamiyo's, Corey Steelcutters, and just the best 1 mana spells Root Blue and Red has to offer. You know, so. But I have played a Corey Steelcutter artifact deck. I'll go ahead and link that here if you want to see. So, turn 1 Tamiyo is annoying. So I'm trying to think about what to do. So, I'm going to hold up Bowmasters. However, if the opponent plays their land first, which they play their fetch land, that's going to safeguard the Tamiyo from getting blown out by Bowmasters, because they're going to try and flip it right now with Brainstorm. So here's the Brainstorm. I'm going to respond with Bowmasters in response. However, they have a face-up Lightning Bolt. So this is all apparent. Like I know this is all happening, but it's going to depower their Brainstorm by quite a bit, though, because they have to crack their fetch ahead of time. You know, so it's not going to be close to an Ancestral. It's, you know, we might even Brainstorm lock them. You know, so but they do flip the Tamiyo, and we have our Orc army. So the battle has begun. So Tamiyo's going to plus. So what do we do now? The Orc army currently can't do any damage because Tamiyo's plus just takes away its power. And I just decide not to mess around with Tamiyo. I'm just going to Grist minus and take it down. Sacrifice the Orc army and blow up Tamiyo. And this is the power of Grist. It's just super flexible, blowing up creatures and planeswalkers and just having like a creature engine. And it's just like a really awesome card. So the opponent's going to Brainstorm. probably searching for a fetch to see if they can just shove, and they did find one. Alright. So they're gonna brainstorm, then fetch. Let's see what they follow up with. Alright, Mishra's Bauble. And they're gonna gather some more information first. So they're gonna look at the top card of our deck. And that is risky, in the face of Bowmasters, but turns out we didn't have one to punish them there. And maybe they have mana drain, maybe they had themselves covered. So Grist survived, so we're gonna start creating insects. Alright, so we mill an Inquisition. Now Grist plays pretty well with like Nethergoyf, by like adding stuff to the graveyard, so maybe I have to do like another Jund variant with like Nethergoyf, Grist, There's a lot of ways you can build, either just straight up green-black or Jund. Like, there's a lot of cool things you can build in Timeless. I think it's much stronger now than it was because Strip Mine, Wrenn and Six. There's a lot of really strong things you can do. So, all right, Expressive Iteration, super powerful draw spell in red-blue. All right, so they find a bolt. So presumably they're going to want to use it this turn. There's the Mox Amber. So, when you can fuel Mox Amber with like stuff like Ragavan and Tameo, it's insanely strong. So, all right, so they're gonna pop our Deathrite, and we have Bowmasters and Wrenn and Six. So thankfully, we had 2 mana dorks. So thankfully, we have a red source for Wrenn and Six. So trying to think right here, like, do I use Wrenn and Six to kill Ragavan, or do I use Bowmasters to kill it? And the thing is, we're not even actually like scared of Ragavan because we have an insect token, So, but decide just to pop the Ragavan and crash it with the insect because enough fetching and shocking, the chip damage is going to add up. Plus, that we have a Bowmasters to hold up on the opponent. Now, I'm holding Bowmasters here because I'm trying to snipe them when they crack the Clue token. All right, so the Mystic Sanctuary, and they're going to grab. Would have loved for them to grab a Brainstorm, but Expressive Iteration is probably a little stronger in this situation. Because Brainstorm, we'd have to blow them out with Bowmasters, But as the opponent expressively iterates, please let me know in the comments, like, what are your favorite Planeswalkers that are in the Jund colors? Is it Duretti? Is it Wrenn and Six? Liliana the Veil? Let me know which ones you like. Alright, so there's the Corey Steel color. However, they've already cast spells this turn, so they're not going to get their Monk token. Alright, feeling pretty good. Now, I'm just going to cast Bowmasters because it's going to, now that it's on the battlefield, it's going to, make cracking their Clue difficult, make cracking Mishra's Bauble difficult, and it's going to add some extra pressure right now. So I'm trying to do the math right here if we can kill them. So we have 3 points of attackers if we use Halfling to cast Minsc and Boo, and we can have a 4/4 haste hamster. So, and if we minus Wrenn, that's an extra point of damage. However, the opponent ended up cracking their Bauble in response. So now that we have essentially the guaranteed kill, barring like a stifle or something crazy like that, So I'm going to crash in. It's going to deal 7 damage upon attack. It's going to minus Wrenn to deal 1 more damage. And now, if they don't have a way to stifle this trigger, the Bauble draw takes them down. So on to the next game. Feeling pretty good about beating up on the red-blue tempo deck. Lurrus Companion and Castle Lockthwain on the other side of the battlefield. Gonna lead with an Inquisition right here. And this, okay, so obviously we're playing a discard deck, and I don't know what came over me. Like, the obvious play is to take Waste Not or Bowmasters here. Like, that's what you should do. But for some reason, I took Dark Ritual. I don't know what I was thinking. And like, is at this point where I'm like, what the freak was I doing? Like, that was so stupid. So the opponent's actually going to Surgical in response and take away our other Inquisitions. But I guess I was like, oh, they can use Dark Ritual to turbo Lurrus into play, but we have like a million ways to deal with Lurrus. Anyway, I don't know what I was thinking because we've just unnecessarily left them with some resources, So there's a Waste Not in play, and the opponent's hand doesn't look that scary though. I mean, it's just like Bojuka Bog, Bowmasters, like. Looks like we have some options here. So, going to just run out Wrenn and Six. We do need an extra mana source to actually cast Minsc and Boo. So, going to put an extra land into hand and move on. It doesn't, unless they have, it doesn't seem likely they'll be able to deal with Wrenn and Six very effectively. Right, Thoughtseize is super annoying because, and this is where Grist being double typed come back to bite us, because it's a creature, so they get a zombie token, and then they get another Thoughtseize to draw a card. So just like that, tables have turned quite quickly. So the two strongest plays we had are now both gone, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that just sucks. So and this is another deck building thing that I was thinking about, is currently Strip Mine's perfectly fine to toss in the graveyard. They've blown their graveyard exiling, and Wrenn and Six can grab it later on, or right now if we wanted to. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. So we could Wrenn and Six down the token and then Bowmasters it. So that's what I ultimately decided to do, because it's going to start attacking Wrenn and Six anyway. I'm like, all right, let me just preempt that and take down the zombie token. Not to mention, like, it's going to force their Bowmasters into play, which then we can engage against their Bowmasters. But they have another discard spell, which makes sense. They're a discard deck, and as the opponent's Waste Not is going off, I'll go and link a discard deck of my own. I love playing this kind of strategy myself. So things just keep going bad at like every turn, and you can sort of trace it back to my turn 1 discard mistake. Like, if I'd taken Bowmasters or Waste Not, that's one like less resource the opponent has, and like this, the Dark Ritual wouldn't really done anything if we had made one of those plays, So at this point, I'm trying to keep Lurrus off our backs, and I'm gonna pop the creature land right here. So I'm going to Deathrite, and like we do have the Wrenn and Six Strip Mine loop, which is not nothing. However, the opponent has a lot going for them right now, including a creature that just outclasses both of ours. So we could go for the double block, but like really want to keep Deathrite in play. All right, so the opponent's gonna put Lurrus into hand and has another land. So we can keep strip mining them, but like it honestly like doesn't matter, because they actually have no permanents in their graveyard to recur, as it stands. So going to strip mine the Castle Lochthwain, at least take away a potential source of card advantage, and we just keep ripping lands. So really hoping to find just anything just to get back into this. And the opponent finds a Momentum Breaker, which is bad in two different ways. So it's going to kill a creature, which is bad for us. The other difficult thing is that it can put itself into the graveyard, and now the opponent has like a super awesome thing to loop with Lurrus. So the opponent has like a really awesome deck right here, and I love this bold attack from them. Sure, they're going to lose a Bowmasters, but they're going to take down Wrenn and Six. So sometimes you need to like chump attack in moments like this. I think it is the right play from the opponent, especially because Lurrus eventually can bring it back. But I'm going to take care of Bowmasters right now and gain some life, because I don't want them looping it. But the Momentum Breaker loop is on the horizon, and this is one of those games where, if let's say we drew Minsc and Boo right here and just made a giant 4/4, then all of a sudden it stonewalls the opponent and buys us a ton of time. But we've just been ripping lands, and that just happens sometimes. Now, we could still totally get into this if we can just kill Lurrus. That buys us a lot of time, because Deathrite right now, can do some work. Now, I end up dealing damage to them because, I don't know, maybe I should have been padding our life total at this point instead of trying to lower theirs. So we do have 2 copies of Fury, which would be an incredible draw. But basically, if we can get Lurrus off the board, we can buy ourselves a ton of time. So going to Thoughtseize right here and take the Waste Not. And at first I'm like, yes, all right, took away Waste Not, it feels good. Well, I just gave them something to Lurrus at the cost of 2 life. So that's not exactly great. Now, you do want to sort of like empty your hand against discard, so there's that. But it's just like we took an extra zombie hit for no reason, with that Thoughtseize. So so that was a pretty bad draw. So they're going to crash in for 5 damage. Their engines are going off, and I'm like just desperately hoping for anything right now. Playing the fetches out, like it is lowering our life total, but I'm trying to like do whatever minimal deck thinning we have, and you can see we have like a ton of good draws in there. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start just harvesting stuff from my own graveyard to try and prolong the game and draw into something. So another Deathrite is something, at least. At least it can threaten a double block against the Lurrus and leave some material behind, you know. So I'm like, okay, so finally we drew something. Like, let's see if we can deal with this. And Hopeless Nightmare is pretty tough because that's going to strip our last card, but it's actually going to make the Waste Knots really pop off right here. So they're going to add some mana, and that's going to allow them to start looping their enchantments. So they're going to sacrifice Momentum Breaker, which gains them some life, but more importantly puts in the graveyard for Lurrus. And so all of a sudden that sweet double block we had lined up is off the table. So and so this was, I think, a very winnable game, but a combination of mistakes and bad draws put us into like a tough situation. So still fighting the good fight, because once again, if we just top deck a Fury, take down 2 of their creatures, have a double striker in play, like we're back in business, you know. So now one flaw with this deck is we have a lot of ways to deal increments of 1 damage. And I end up putting a Kroxa in play, but as you can see, the opponent has like a million ways to kill us. They can loop Hopeless Nightmare, they can sacrifice us down to 1 creature and attack, or play another Hopeless Nightmare. So end up losing this game. But once again, I think this is a winnable matchup. Well, that was super fun. Jund is just like a classic strategy, and I think it's pretty well positioned to time us right now, like especially with Strip Mine and like a lot of good ways to recur it. Like there's a ton of fun things you can do with Jund, a lot of good tools, and I think it's relatively well positioned. Not to mention there's tons of like fun ways you can build it. You can, you know, build the Planeswalker version, you can lean heavier into the Nethergoyf, Tarmogoyf, and fill it out with a bunch of other different types in your graveyard. You could put Liliana's and make it more classic Jund. You can go heavy on the Strip Mine locking with Ice Till and Wrenn and Six. You can go lean with like Ragavans and Nethergoyfs, you know, so there's a lot of different things you can do. As far as this build, I think I've over-indexed on dealing with X1. So Wrenn and Six can deal 1 damage, Bowmasters can do 1 damage, but as you can see, a lot of times we run into stuff like Deathrite, Nethergoyf, Tamiyo, like that just don't fold to 1 damage, and we just mostly have ways to deal damage in increments of X equals 1, you know. So it could be that we need like more Molten Collapses as like general answers, or more Fatal Pushes. So I think the ratios need to be tweaked on those to get you a little bit more of that. And you could go heavier on the discard spells, but then that just gives you sort of more dead top decks, you know. So I don't love going heavier than 6 unless you have a way to sort of offload those or get extra benefit, like if you're a dedicated discard deck. But there's a ton of cool different directions you can go. You can go heavier on the Strip Mine locking, throw Ice Tills in there with the Wrenn and Sixes and go way heavy on that, maybe even crop rotation into it. You can sort of go even more controlling and go for like Toxic Deluges and Damnations and like just fewer win cons and try and really grind them out with removal. You can also do One Rings or Shieldreds. You can also rock Overlord the Belmurk and maybe even lean into like a Scam package. Overlord can also pick up Grist. So there's basically infinite ways you can build it that are really fun, and I think probably like tons of different viable ways to do it. So, but yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.